Alright, folks, so today we are going to be doing yet another update on the election. I like to do these videos basically periodically, or, moreover, whenever I see some sort of shift going on or something, somewhat significant occurs. And I think that it's worthy of updating you guys about. And it seems to be the case that there has indeed been another shift. The way you can look at, the sort of magnitude of the shift really depends upon your perspective, but I think that anybody can sort of agree that a 6-point swing is pretty massive, no matter how you put it. Now, as you guys know, Elizabeth Warren has been performing ridiculously well in polls. There was a point, as you can see right here, where Warren, for one day, barely went over Biden, which is something nobody has done yet, which is absolutely insane. When I talked about her announcing her run, I had no clue she was going to perform this well. In fact, I had her and Kamala's roles completely reversed. I figured the role that Kamala holds right now, Warren would be holding, and the role that Warren has now, although not to the same degree, although possibly, Harris would hold. Instead, it's completely flipped, 100% flipped. And she's performing ridiculously well. Now, as you can see, though, it seems to be the case that she's fallen off pretty hard from 26.8 down to 20.6. So as you can obviously tell, that's a little over a 6-point swing, which is a heavy swing to go, 6 points like that. And it could be evidence of, two things, one or the other. It could be evidence that Warren is sort of going down and that her growth is not something that's sustainable. Or you could look at it as she's still going to maintain her height, but just not as high as she got. In other words, she'll remain a 20%er, which is very high, but she won't remain a 27%er like she was for 1 second and hold a lead over Biden. So, either of those things could happen. You know what I'm saying? So, what we've got here is obviously about a 6-point swing. And you can see that it directly correlates with Biden gaining more support. So it looks like Biden took back some of his support from Warren. Here, Warren's at 26.6, Biden's at 26.4. And then literally simultaneously as Biden grows, Warren drops. So it looks like Biden snatched back the support from Warren, which is very interesting to me. Now, Warren's growth has been pretty continuous and just steady and continued growth. And this growth was the least consistent. This right here was a massive jump in a very fast period of time over the span of like 3 weeks. She went up from 16 to 26.6, which is an insane growth. So it seems to be the case that growth was not sustainable. Now, the sort of ultimate question I have to ask is whether or not her position that she currently holds is a sustainable position for her, which is being at 20.6. The answer to that, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Now, really the only major candidate who has had the term consistency is Bernie Sanders. Everybody else has been extremely volatile. Bernie Sanders really has not been, he's really been in a 3-point swing at max, where, he took 18.2 here, and then really ever since then, he's been basically, cycling through the 15s, sometimes dipping into like 14 point something, but outside of Bernie, really, no one else has really been consistent. I mean, Biden goes through like 4 or 5 point swings. It seems like he's almost consistently volatile, which is weird. Consistently changing constantly. It's very weird to see. Bernie seems to be the only candidate who's been consistent, which is a plus. It means that Bernie's support is real, and most importantly, Bernie's support is steady. Now, what you need to understand, folks, and I can't stress this enough to you guys, so really take this to heart, okay? This election is a marathon, not a sprint. What happens in Iowa, New Hampshire does not determine the election. Remember last time around, Bernie lost Iowa by 0.2 and then won New Hampshire by about 22 points. He ended up not winning the election. So understand, And remember, none of these states are winner take all. If you win by 0.2, oh, congrats, you took, 0.2% more delegates. Oh, wow, great, awesome, big deal. Doesn't mean anything. There are no winner take all states. It's all proportionate. So, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So the fact that he has the most consistent numbers, that's a positive. That's a plus. That's, in fact, really, really good. Now, I feel like a lot of the Biden support in these polls does seem to be a bit synthetic or fake. Pseudo, whatever, fugazi, whatever term you want to use. And when I say that, I don't mean that, like, the pollsters are cheating or something like that, or they're lying. What I mean is, I think that most of Biden's support in these polls is really just a result of people knowing his name, nostalgia from Obama. They just kind of look at the poll and, they say Biden because, he was Barack Obama's VP, right? And he was the last president. Obama's loved by the Democrats. So, to that, degree and to that level, I just feel like it's not really real. It's not really legit. Then when we look at Kamala Harris, we always love checking into Kamala Harris. She's by far had the weirdest, candidacy. I mean, she started out at 6.3, then rose all the way to 12.3, then had like a steep decline down to 7 points. Then she jumped up really, really fast up to 15 points. And then ever since then, it's just been downhill. I mean, I've never seen such a collapse in my life. She literally went from being 14.8 in the top 3, folks. I think she overtook Bernie at one point here. Yeah, overtook Bernie by 1.2 points. But, to the opposite of Bernie, which he's consistent, Kamala's not. So she went all the way from, 15.2 all the way down to 3.5 at one point. Now it's risen back up to 4.5. I mean, if she doesn't drop out sometime soon, I'll be shocked. I don't understand how she could stay in this race. She's not even top 4. This is the biggest shock of the election by far. Even more of a shock than Warren's performance because, come on, let's be real. Nobody saw Kamala, imploding this hard. It's just impossible to foresee, especially considering that she seemed to have all of the qualities of a formidable candidate. And it turns out that she's just a complete joke. It's what it turns out to be, which is absolutely unbelievably hilarious. And then you've got, Mayor Pete, who really he's been consistent too, I guess. He's between 5 and 8. 5 and 7. It doesn't look like he's hit 8 at any point. So he's completely gone. Of course, Beto has now dropped out as well because he was dipping down to like 2 points. So you really got to understand that a lot of these changes that are happening are pretty big. Yang is at 2.3. He seems to have flatlined and isn't going anywhere. Booker's at 2.3. Klobuchar's at 2.6. These candidates are all people who are going nowhere. Klobuchar's going nowhere. She's going to have to drop out soon. Booker's going nowhere. He's going to have to drop out soon. And these are some of the candidates that are just going to have to drop out. Castro. Like, a lot of these people are going to have to drop out fairly soon. I don't know how long all of these candidates are going to be able to maintain their spot in the race. But certainly once the actual elections start happening, which I believe start in February, it's going to be time to drop out fairly quickly. Now, these polls, this one has Biden +1, has tie, and, this one has 26, 25, 14 for Bernie. It's not a good number for Bernie. The Monmouth poll is 23, 23, 20, which is a better split for Bernie here. So, these are the numbers that we're looking at here. So Bernie is, closer to Warren now. He's risen a bit. I believe his numbers had actually tanked a couple points, like 3 points after he had his small heart attack. But it looks like he's bouncing back up. This may be partially due to AOC and Ilhan Omar endorsing him. Is possible. I mean, that's a shift that I've seen, that the only really explanation I could see for this. And then, of course, Warren is just completely going down. The reasoning for that, I'm not really sure, to be quite frank with you. As you guys know, Warren appeals to a lot of the people who are Hillary supporters and those kinds of Democrats, whereas Bernie doesn't really appeal to those people. They hate Bernie. But what the reasoning is for Warren dropping off 6 points, because a 6 point swing is very massive, of course. I don't really know what to tell you. So the goal here is we need Bernie to continue to rise, and we want Biden to fall off. Now, Warren falling off is really only beneficial if the support directly goes to Bernie. I mean, if she drops off and Biden's eating up her support, then we're not really getting anywhere. That's not really beneficial in any way. So, if it means that Warren's going to stay higher, I mean, I would prefer Warren having the points that would then go over to Biden, obviously. But, we need to keep pushing, essentially, and Bernie is just, he's consistent and he's pushing. The questions that I have that remain, when are all these sort of minor candidates who are just failing going to drop out? As well as, is Bernie going to see that bump into the 20s? Is Biden going to drop off at any point? And finally, is Elizabeth Warren's, support sustainable? She's held this for a couple days, but it's still been a little bit, iffy in these areas, in these 20s, going between 20 and 21 point blank and stuff like that. I don't know how sustainable her growth is and where she's going to go. But we will have to see. And I will be sure to keep you updated, of course, on any other significant changes.